The P5+1, 6 nations, and Iran, extending these talks for 7 months with the very specific goal of finishing the political agreement within 4 months, and with the understanding that we will go to work immediately.
The Iranian government could not be happier with the atmosphere surrounding their current nuclear talks with the United States. They are quietly telling anyone who will listen that America will lift economic sanctions and that uranium enrichment won't be a problem. But the problem here is all that and more, and a connection with the killers known as Hamas. And then there's Cuba. Let's bring in a media commentator on the Middle East and an active dissident figure to the Iranian government. Also author of the book, The Iran Threat, President Ahmadinejad and the Coming Nuclear Crisis. Alireza Jafarzadeh joins us. Alireza, it's a pleasure to see you again.
Always great pleasure to be on your show, Ed.
Thank you. Before we turn to the nuclear talks, I want to get your reaction on something that has happened today. America is normalizing its relations with Cuba after more than 50 years. And it's oddly enough that just today a news story that comes out talking about Iran and Cuba emphasizing their determination to further strengthen their bilateral relations in various areas. Well, that's all well and good, but it is fair to say that Iran and Cuba have been looking to get cozier now for quite some time. They actually have been cozy since the Islamic Revolution back in 1979. So what do you think the reaction will be in Iran as they see their hated enemy, America, now getting even closer to their friend, Cuba?
Well, I think as far as the Iranian people are concerned, I don't think this will have a positive impact among them, because they feel any government that is an ally of the Iranian regime, the public have some kind of a hatred and disdain against them. The same situation applies for Cuba, because the Cuban government is known for providing all kinds of support to the Iranian regime. In the early days after the revolution, as you mentioned earlier, they were actually helping with the formation of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards. Over the past, 3 decades, Cuba has provided, all kinds of support, a lot of economic relations. In every forum internationally, Cuba has been on the side of Iran, whether it was the UN Security Council, whether it was the General Assembly, whether there were resolutions condemning the human rights violations of Iran. Any forum, Tehran had always counted on Cuba to be an ally, and for that reason the people of Iran never liked it. But as far as the regime is concerned, I think that's a sign of weakness. They feel that America is not only reaching out to the regime itself and being soft on them, but they're also reaching out to the allies of the Iranian regime. And I think that's not the kind of signal you want to send to a repressive regime like Iran.
I don't think there's any doubt that the Cuban government will want American money. That's partially what this is based on, certainly. They want to make sure that they get more of those dollars. And now with that money coming into Cuba, perhaps, things normalizing, if you will. How are the Iranians then going to see this? Because would there be a fear that now America may use Cuba as a backdoor eventually to try and pressure the Iranian government to do what the American government wants them to do? It's a new ally to help America. I would guess that's the way Iran might see it.
Well, I think the Iranian regime will see that. I don't think they will see it as a pressure point for them. They feel that, well, if Cuba, with all the sanctions, with all the problems they've had with the United States, eventually the United States basically backed down from its positions before. Well, that means maybe in the case of Iran, if the Iranian regime will hold their position, they can eventually wear down the United States. They can eventually get the United States to step back from its previous position and perhaps, lift sanctions, provide more concessions to the Iranian regime. That signals, in fact, that America is ready for more concessions. And this is not the kind of signal you want to send to Iran in the midst of the nuclear negotiations, especially if these negotiations have been stalled by Iran for over 12 years and they haven't produced anything for the past 1 year.
All right, now I'd like you to please stand by, if you will, because we're going to take a break and come back. We had originally started this segment to go ahead and talk about the Iranian nuclear issue. We're going to do that when we come back, because when we do do return, it is more than just about Cuba. Let's focus on Iran. The nuclear talks. Iranian people and the Iranian government thinking that they are going to get away with this, that they are going to get what they want. Meantime, you have lawmakers in Washington, D.C. who are saying to the president, it just isn't going to happen on our watch. We'll return with this and so much more, and telling it like it is at 51 minutes after the hour, right here on MidPoint.